So in terms of job openings, there's different places to look. We know many of these. I just wanted to name some of them. Certainly online, right? Like it's important to have, I think, some online access, depending on whatever job you are looking for. One of my first jobs out of college was teaching low-income folks in LA, many of whom were either homeless or fell in hard times to look for jobs. And we did, in California, they had a thing called Cal Jobs, which was specifically for people in the trades who had had extensive experience. And I met a lot of folks who had many years of experience in construction, in pipe laying, and even some in computer science who had been sort of out of the field for a while and found some job boards on there. And then I see a question in the chat. I'll get to that in just a second. Let me run through these quickly. The newspaper, there are still some jobs posted in various newspapers, and you never know. Like if people are advertising there, they definitely want to hire. Those aren't necessarily kind of full-time career jobs, but sometimes you can find things there. And by online, I mean, there's so many places online, right? There's Indeed, there's Idealist, there's Monster, but there's also Craigslist. There's, if you haven't heard of the site Upwork, you can offer a certain service that you do there, like editing or, teaching people public speaking. I have a friend who's an actor who's gotten a lot of jobs teaching people public speaking, or certainly people who come from other countries who want, their English to be more professional. Whatever services, that you might be able to offer, you can find. Certainly contacting the business directly, like Lisa just talked about. Don't be afraid to do that. You could show up in person, you can call, you can email, developing a relationship with someone from there. And, they often say that you find jobs through a friend of a friend of a friend, right? Or a connection of a connection of a connection. It's not necessarily the people it's the people they know. And on LinkedIn, you can ask for introductions to those folks if you scour someone's network. Job fairs, those are still going on. Some are virtual, some are in person. I know the DC government does a lot of job fairs. There was a Health and Human Services and the federal government job fair recently where they had a lot of jobs posted and it was free to register. I put networking in all caps for a reason. I know there was a session here 2 weeks ago about networking. And I know a lot of people hate networking, just like they hate job searching. The reframe that I often like to do with networking that works for me anyway is, for me, it's a little easier because I love meeting people. I love meeting new people. I'm excited to meet all of you here tonight. I know not everyone's that way. But if there's something you want to do or something you're interested in, that's the kind of way that you can network around something you like. So let's say, this is sort of outside the box, but let's say you love comic books. If you go to like a comic book convention and you talk to a bunch of people there and you bond over X-Men or, whatever else, Wonder Woman, and you're talking about that comic, and then you get to know that person, you can say, oh, this is what I've done for a living. I'm actually looking for jobs now, or you can stay in touch with them and talk to them the next day. And then they'll be like, oh, I actually know someone who works in insurance, or I know someone who works in, let me, connect you with them. And they'll say, well, we're not hiring, but, here at Aetna, but I know someone over at Blue Cross Blue Shield who is. You just never know. And it can make networking a little bit easier if part of the time you're doing something you really enjoy. I think we often don't think of that. We think we have to go to some mixer where we don't know anyone and there's a million people there. There's definitely different strategies around that. And certainly at job fairs or places where you network where you don't know someone, just having like a really solid conversation with someone and staying on their radar can help. I got my first job that way. Out of college at a job fair, I had no real work experience, but I just made a good connection at the person at the job fair, and it kind of went up from there. And then the last one on here, and then I'll get to the question in the chat, is temping. I think we often forget about temping. Like I said before, having some sort of income coming in while you're looking for a job search can be really reassuring, right? It can give you some peace of mind, take some of the stress out. It doesn't necessarily need to be the job you're going to have long term, but some temp jobs, do pay decently, and sometimes they even have benefits. And of course, in this area, both Maryland, Virginia, and DC have health insurance benefits that you can get directly from the government. So I highly suggest that, because if you're spending, all day, every day trying to look for a job, I also don't recommend that. There's one thing that they say, don't spend more than 4 hours a day looking for a job. I mean, do it every day, maybe of the weekdays. But that's a suggestion I've heard, that if you're doing that really consistently, it can't be 4 hours of, taking 45-minute breaks every hour. But if you are doing that consistently, I think you really need a break. It's a stressful process, and you need to take care of yourself.